Okay, it is 6:30 and I'd like to call this meeting of council to order and acknowledge that the city of Winkler is situated on Treaty 1 land, home to the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples and homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that have been made on these territories and dedicate ourselves to a future based on respect for all peoples, moving forward to a harmonious, prosperous future together. Be it resolved that the agenda for this regular council meeting of March 24th, 2026 be adopted. Mover?
Andrew?
Second.
Marvin.
Any additions or changes to what you see in front of you?
Nope.
All in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting of March 10th, 2026 be adopted. Mover?
Ryan.
Don got it, Ryan got the second. Any comments on those minutes? All in favor? And that is carried. Moving then into correspondence, we have two pieces there. An update on the bridge at Runkild and a request from Stars. Any comments on what you see there?
It's nice to see the update from the province on that bridge.
Is that normal? That they give us an update?
Well, I didn't think it was normal. That's why I thought it was. And it's nice to see the timeline. Boy, I think that they worked diligently on that.
I think with the importance of that roadway, particular to southern Manitoba and the amount of economic activity that we create for the province, it behooves them to get it done as quickly as possible. And again, thankfully that they are.
Yeah.
And there was a fair bit of advocacy from a number of southern municipalities on that.
Okay.
So I think it's a good response to that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Continuing then into finance, be it resolved that accounts payable in the amount of $513,162.20 as approved by the finance committee be approved for payment. Mover?
Andrew?
Second.
Ryan.
The check register, as always, is attached. Questions on what you see? All in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2356-26, being a council indemnity bylaw, be read a second time. Mover?
Peter.
Second.
Michael.
Attached there with a few updates and modernizations. What we want to do always, and not just want to, legally are required to do, when we pay ourselves, we have to make sure that we clearly document what that's going to look like. It's here, it's been properly advertised. Not sure if anybody's got any questions or comments to what you see in front of you.
I know for me, as a newer counselor, it's I find it much more clear, and I appreciate the detail that's been put into it to make it a lot easier to understand. So,
And I think that's critically important, that our community knows what that looks like, and they can look at any point in time to see where it is.
yep.
Not seeing anything further? All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2356-26, being a council indemnity bylaw, be read a third and final time. Mover?
Don.
Marvin.
Don got it, Marvin got the second. Final questions or thoughts? All in favor? Carried. Moving then into police and fire. Be it resolved that the Winkler Fire Department Committee meeting minutes for March 11th, 2026 be adopted. Mover?
Michael.
Second.
Ryan.
They're in front of you. Either of you have any comments on what's there?
No big, I guess, comment, only point out, and Marv, maybe you can correct me, MFR, that's Manitoba First Responders. Yeah, so just that, yeah, Chief Paytol gave us an update there. No progress with that. We're gonna kind of maintain the status quo with regards to level of service, with regards to firefighters and first response.
Okay, appreciate it.
I also appreciated there was some talk about how you know, within the fire department, there's been such a great culture that's been created. And so people stick around. And so there's a lot of long service firefighters that have been serving our community for a long time. And so it's great to see.
Very, very nice to see, and obviously that longevity and that history and that being able to help the younger and newer people along is critical.
Exactly.
Not seeing anything further, all in favor? And that is carried. Move then into speed limit resolution. And what I'll do is I'll put this back on the floor, and then Jody, if you can maybe help us understand exactly why we're seeing this.
Yep.
You'll see a number of whereases there that leads us to, therefore be it resolved that council of the city of Winkler hereby requests that Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure initiate a technical review of the posted speed limit and operating conditions on provincial trunk highway number 14 between Road 23W, Dickens Road, and 15th Street, including consideration of roadway context, land use, pedestrian activity, and other relevant safety factors in accordance with MTI's established speed limit review process, and to report back on any findings or recommendations. Mover.
Mervin.
Second.
Peter.
Jody, if you would help us, please.
Sure. Back in October of 2023, this was also at the council table to put in an application with the province for them to review speeds along that section of the highway as it relates to safety. That didn't go anywhere with the province. Not that they weren't in favor of reviewing it, but it just ended up getting stalled somewhere. Recently, the MTI appointed a new director with this responsibility, and he's working very hard to clean up old files that have been sitting around. Now, at first, he wasn't able to find the resolution that we sent back then. We had done a resolution, but he basically asked us that it would be cleaner for them if we just hit the reset button and submit a new application so that he can work on it now. So he's, I think, been diligently working on cleaning up old files. So I have confidence that they'll look at this. But it does require a new resolution. And then if council is favorable to this resolution, then we will submit a new application for them along with the resolution.
Okay. Thank you, Jody. Comments from council?
2 questions. Does this impact the Dickens Road traffic study? And 2, is there a cost to us for this?
So to answer the second question first, there's no cost to us. The first question, as it relates to an ongoing traffic impact study, no, at this point, that's separate. We did let the director know that there was a traffic impact study. Sometimes in the different departments, they're not always aware of what's going on.
That's my concern.
So
What
we
if there's
did-
conflicting information that comes back?
And so we let him know, and he was appreciative of that, and he's going to review that when they get our application.
Like
So-
when they're doing that traffic study right now, would they not come with recommendations from that study already?
There may well be a recommendation on speed there. It might have different triggers based on when developments will be built out to what stage of the development. I think having this separate application in is still what needs to happen if we want to see some change in reducing the speed limit there. You'll notice we didn't put a speed limit in because they prefer to do the review and then recommend an appropriate limit. But it won't have impact in terms of the province's process. They're in the final stages of approving that traffic impact study. This will have no impact on that. It only could have impact the other way, that traffic impact study will help inform this department of the province when they review the speed.
So what I'm hearing is, in a best case scenario, these things move in parallel and we get to that review more quickly. And in a worst case scenario, it has no effect.
Probably true.
Okay.
Would it though?
Meaning,
I don't know, what other things could come up here that they would force costs on us? If there's anything that needs to be changed for any part of this, whether
And in
it's,
this instance, we're specifically requesting a change in speed on a provincial trunk highway.
Right.
And a provincial trunk highway is solely their jurisdiction.
right,
There's just
So
no
why would
history
they
or
look at this?
precedent of them charging municipalities for
Okay.
reducing speeds.
So are you thinking, Andrew, we should wait till after our traffic impact study is done before we apply for this, or put this resolution in?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay, just checking.
I don't know. I'm always cautious about speed limit changes, so.
Okay.
We have requests from the some requests from the community
Yeah.
back then already
And
that,
I would say our October 18th, 2023 minutes do show that.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And it's not got better since then.
No, if you ever cross that intersection and you're on that little landing past the off-ramp there, it doesn't feel great.
Well, and you have a semi smoking through there,
Yeah.
and I've been there, that doesn't feel.
And if
good.
you do that in winter when it's icy, it feels even worse.
Yeah, that's not good,
Yeah.
not good.
It's takes a long time to drive through Winkler now.
Indeed. And we want to be able to do it safely and at that corner with the amount of pedestrian traffic that is there. It does make some sense, but obviously open to council's opinion and
Just
thoughts.
wait till we get golf carts on the streets, Andrew.
Yeah,
Price of
Not
fuel
over
should
there.
be.
I'm gonna have to find someone who can suit mine up, yeah?
On that note, any other comments there, or are we ready for the question?
Ready.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed?
I'm more out of uncertainty.
Okay. Carried 6-1. Moving forward, be it resolved that the Pembina Valley Regional Airport Steering Committee minutes for the February 11, 2026 meeting be received for information. Mover,
Don Friesen?
second.
Ryan?
You've got a whole bunch of stuff there, Don.
Yeah, how would that meeting go? Well, you already told us, I guess, but.
Pardon me? I called in for that one, so it was a lengthy one. Unlike I have unlimited minutes on my cell phone and data. But anyways, yeah, it's a dream, and we're gonna pursue the dream a little further and see what it takes us. But yeah, if we could get a regional airport going, it would be a beautiful thing, but there's lots of work and lots of money. So we'll see, depending whether our federal government and provincial wanna,
When you say money, you mean expenses, not revenue.
well, both, both.
So
But yeah, it's just setting up to do a study on what's this, how are we gonna run this thing if we get it going and some of those things. So that's what what we're gonna be working on next.
I think when I read through this, there's a little bit of confusion from somebody who wasn't at the meeting that almost appears like we're moving ahead with incorporation now and dissolution of the name. And I don't think we would be at that point today.
Not even close.
This is the planning for it, but there is no.
Not even close.
Okay,
Yep.
good. Further thoughts and questions? All in favor? And that is carried. Moving then into planning, be it resolved that the MSTW Planning District meetings and reports for February 2026 be received for information. Mover,
Ryan?
second.
Michael?
They're attached. Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that the Planning Committee meeting minutes for March 10th, 2026 be adopted. Mover,
Don?
second.
Ryan?
Attached there. Anything that jumps off the page at you?
No, I don't think that one does for me.
Okay, all in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2362-26 be given first reading. Mover?
Peter,
Second?
Brian,
Thank you. That is a bylaw to rezone 270 George Avenue. This is first reading, so this puts it on the floor and allows the rest of the process to start. Questions? All in favor? Sorry, Peter.
is that all gonna be parking behind Albert Street?
And I think
I
those,
think that's,
this would
This
be,
puts it on the floor and then,
exactly, all the
Okay.
rest of the conversation
Okay.
starts from here.
Nope, good.
This will lead to the hearing.
perfect.
Okay, I'll ask again, all in favor? And this time, we got it. Continuing then to community services. Be it resolved that the Central Manitoba Tourism Board meeting minutes for the March 9th, 2026 meeting be received for information. Mover,
Michael?
second.
Peter,
You've got them there. I've had a chance to review them. Anything particular important that we pay attention to, Michael?
June continues to work diligently to give our region some good exposure. Trade shows, RV shows, that kind of thing, trying to get as much time there as she can and as much as the volunteers can get there. And unfortunately, this last meeting fell off my calendar and I totally forgot about it. So,
So you got to read the minutes with anticipation like we did.
I got to read them before it hit here,
Nice.
but yeah, still after the fact.
Okay, all in favor?
I'd like to just add under tourism, Marvin and myself were at the Heritage Society annual meeting, and they had their plans and they had their people that they've hired to put this museum together, and it's pretty exciting stuff that will definitely help our area, I believe. And what a great combination between Winkler Arts and Culture and Heritage Society and the archives. It's going to be a beautiful, proud facility for our community, that's for sure.
I
making good,
appreciate that you were able to
Yeah.
attend.
Kiva.
When we hear what's coming there, that their fundraising is past $400,000 on
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
project.
which is,
Wow,
yeah.
how fantastic to have a group of people in our community prepared to do that, to do the work, and then to also do the fundraising work. It makes our support of that much
Yeah, we
easier.
got a homegrown local gal that's working on it, which was exciting to see, and she knows more about Winkler history than I do, which is good.
Nice.
Yeah.
that's nice to see the building being utilized now.
Totally, exactly.
It's not half of it's standing empty
Exactly,
anymore.
yeah, well, it's gonna be great facility.
For sure.
Back to our agenda. Be it resolved that the Winkler Resource Committee meeting minutes for the February 24th, 2026 meeting be received for information. Mover,
Brian,
second.
Don,
Who got it?
Don,
Don got it, thank you. This one, every single time I see it, I am blown away at how our resource community works together, shares information, shares best practices, all with an intent to improve our community. We are blessed to have this group
definitely.
of organizations doing this in our community, simply with the intent to make our community better. Based on the individual comments that you see there, is there anything that you'd like more information on or clarity on? Not seeing any, all in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that the Winkler Centennial Golf Club meeting minutes for the February 19th, 2026 meeting be received for information. Mover?
Andrew?
Second.
Michael?
Anything there, Andrew?
Yeah, this was just our meeting that we had, or board meeting before the AGM, so, got our reports from our staff there, and then put together some of our capital, projects, and, approve the statements so we could provide them to the AGM, so.
Very
Yeah.
nice. Thank you for your service there, Andrew.
You bet.
All
We
in
had a-
favor?
We had a good year, so it's good.
Carried. Be it resolved that the South Central Regional Library meeting minutes for the February 9th, 2026 meeting be received for information. Mover.
Ryan?
Second.
Merman.
Thank you. Anything to comment on there, Ryan?
Basically, we were, so at the February 9th meeting, we were just talking about, we had some of the preliminary numbers for our year end. So we were kind of going through that and some of the challenges that they've had yeah, there were some issues that had come up that we wanted to work through. It's working out a lot better with some of the financial services that they have. They've engaged a bookkeeper outside of staff to kind of help with making sure that things are done properly. So that, yeah, that's been working well.
And financially, with the front loading with municipal contributions, you're good for the year then?
We're good for this year, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. You bet. No, that's it. Just the way the public funding, the Manitoba Library's funding comes, it only comes in August, and so it's very difficult for them to otherwise sustain themselves if they don't have some front loading of the municipal funding.
So in this situation, we'll help the province of Manitoba out and let this work then.
You bet.
Nice. Any other comments?
Yeah, I remember bringing that up at the with the ministers, and
Yeah.
I got that same information. Thank you, but no thanks. We've got a good system going.
Yeah.
So, no, I noticed, I looked at statistics, and I was very impressed. Out of the 13,745 Winkler residents, 10,913 have a membership in the library.
Mhm.
That's like almost 80% of our people have a membership in the library.
That's fantastic.
And 31%, yeah, we're only 31% of all the population in the 6 branches, or the 7 communities. But we in Winkler Library have 47% of all circulation. So it's really well used.
Nicely done, Winkler. Any other thoughts or comments from council? All in favor? And that is carried. We'll move then into delegations and hearings. Be it resolved that this regular meeting of council recess for the purpose of holding public hearings. Mover?
Peter?
Second?
Don?
All in favor? Carried. Jody, if you would help us with process for public hearings?
Certainly. We have 2 public hearings tonight. One more traditionally, a conditional use, and then our annual public hearing for our financial plan and presentation. So with all public hearings, we'll introduce it, and then after that, if anyone wants to speak to it, either for or against, the mayor will provide opportunity. We do ask that when you want to speak, you come up to the podium and use the mic and state your name. We stream all of our meetings, and so for that reason, we want to make sure that everyone online can hear and participate in the meeting in that way as well.
Thank you, Jody. That then takes us to public hearing for conditional use number CU 2026-001 at 242 14th Street.
Okay, so this is applicant Do It All Builders on behalf of owners Jacob Jansen and Margaret Jansen, as mentioned, 242 14th Street. The request here is in order to construct a multi-unit dwelling. The existing zoning there is R1 residential, lower density zone, and a multi-unit dwelling is a conditional use in the R1 residential lower density zone. So that is the reason for the public hearing. Our office did have some questions from neighbors, but answered, and there's been no objections to this application. If I could, I'll just highlight a few things from the report to
Please.
council, which the applicant has also received. As mentioned, the zoning is R1. The maximum density in the R1 is 7 dwelling units per gross acre. In this case, it would be 8. That would be a minor variance. If this conditional use were approved by council, it's very likely that then the designated officer would approve that density. So something for you to consider in your deliberations. As far as the subdivision goes, the applicant is looking to subdivide the property into 4 lots. 3 of them would be for the 3-unit threeplex that he's building, and 1 for an existing single-unit dwelling on that site. And their 2 staff have indicated that title must be secured for the proposed lots 2 to 4 prior to development permit approval. In this case, that's something that is, it would not be permitted to construct early under our existing zoning bylaw, and could have risk for the owners as well. Density I already mentioned. There's a few other minor variances. The density was already mentioned. There's also a minor variance to decrease the north interior yard and the south interior yard. Both of those require a 5-foot setback, and the request here would be to have 4.5-foot setbacks. Again, likely to be approved if council proceeds with approving the conditional use. Also want to point out on page 3 of your report, the lot grading and drainage plan. With infill projects, we don't have any specific bylaw, so we analyze each application on a case-by-case basis. We look at the context of the land and the building and so on, and we determine if there's any additional stormwater requirements. In this case, staff have recommended that there is a requirement for some stormwater mitigation, and I believe Abe is already aware of that as well. Perfect. Just a very small minor note, the most northerly driveway would have to be reduced very slightly, or a minor variance approval if they want to keep it the way it is. Not a very significant issue. Also discussed with the applicant, as we have for pretty much all of our infill projects, that one of the conditions be that the developer replace the sidewalk in front of the development according to the current city standards for sidewalks. Couple of things on trees. The applicant is very familiar with that. I think he knows where to go in the city to get that kind of information, and he does it proactively. So that part also is not a surprise to him. That's all I have. Staff are recommending approval if there's no other significant objections to this application, with the conditions as per mentioned in the resolution and the report to council.
Thank you very much for that, Jody. Is there anybody in chambers wishing to speak to this proposal?
Good evening, gentlemen. Abe Wall here from Winkler, owner of Do It All Builders. So Jody pretty much summed up everything that I plan on doing there. Got an email from Steph on report to council, and nothing new there. So we're going to meet the water retention and sidewalks and rezoning requirements. So that's all good. Did a door knocking to the closest neighbors around. Everyone that was home or I could talk to, they're all in favor. No objections from anybody on that front. And reason why I'm applying for some of this would be lack of lots. We're personally we're down to less than a handful left and nothing available to purchase. So we seek this avenue to keep me and my guys busy. And looks like it's going to be a super busy summer again, and enjoy banging lumber together. So
Good.
With the approval, look forward to doing that.
First and foremost, thank you for reaching out to the neighbors and sharing your plan with them. I think anytime there's a redevelopment, there's a natural nervousness from the neighbors. So when you get out there and you talk to people and show them what's happening, it helps for them to understand what's going on. So I commend you for that. Thank you, Abe.
Excellent.
Council, any questions of Abe?
I was just gonna say, thanks for banging lumber together, because that's as good as my drumming gets to.
Still having fun. Yeah.
Thank you, Abe. Is there anybody else wishing to speak to this project? Either for or against? Not seeing anybody else in chambers. We've got nothing online. Council, any further comments? Seeing that, then be it resolved that public hearing for conditional use application number C 2026-001 be closed. Mover.
Ryan.
Ryan got it, Marvin got the second. All in favor? Carried. Be it resolved that council approve conditional use number CU 2026-001, subject to subdivision approval separating the existing single-unit dwelling from the proposed row house dwelling, a city-approved lot grading, drainage, and stormwater management plan, and the replacement of the sidewalk fronting the property constructed to city standards. Mover.
Peter?
Second.
Michael?
Final thoughts or questions? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Abe, for continuing to invest into our community and getting some housing built. That takes us to the exciting part of this evening, the presentation of our 2026 financial plan by David Martins, our Director of Corporate Services. David, the floor is yours.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to our financial plan, the 2026 plan for the city of Winkler. In this presentation, we will touch on the budget for 2026. We'll talk a little bit about the assessment change, and then obviously somewhat about how does that impact you as a ratepayer, as a taxpayer for the city of Winkler. If you have been here before, this slide is probably familiar to you. We always look a little bit at what has our assessment done, how has it changed from the previous year. So 2026 was not a reassessment year. So that means our overall assessment grew by 3.5%. Usually during a reassessment year, we are around at 10% because that includes inflation. This time the 3.5, that includes just your growth. So overall, you could say we saw a 3.5% growth in assessment for the city of Winkler. We saw a little bit more growth on the commercial side than on residential. This can go back and forth, but the commercial assessment grew by 4.3%, residential by 3.2%. And then on the bottom, you can see how our total assessment is being divided up between residential, commercial, and institutional properties. Residential assessment making up 55%. Commercial assessment 31%, and institutional 12%, and other assessment mainly being farmland is sitting at 2%, so we still have some farmland within the city limits as well. This chart shows you over the last 10 years how our assessment has changed and how our assessment has grown over these 10 years. So in 2017, if you look at the light blue bar, we had a total assessment of just under $1.5 billion. Well, in 2026, that has increased to over $2.5 billion. So over the last 10 years, we added over $1 billion in assessment. Not all growth, obviously also as the market increases in value, that's also incorporated in this amount, but still over $1 billion in assessment was added, or it grew by over $1 billion. The dark blue shows you the residential assessment. So in 2017, again, we were around $850 to $900 million. Today, we are sitting over $1.5 billion. Commercial was in 2017 just under 400 million, and today we are at 650 million. When you look at the lines, that shows your percentage change in assessment, and you can see that every 2 years you see a little bit of a spike of those lines, and that clearly outlines the reassessment years that we have every second year. There was one exception during COVID where the province canceled it. So, but other than that, every second year you look at a reassessment, and then if the last one was in 2025, and you can see that the total assessment changed by about 12% in 2025. This year it's at 3.5 because it's not a reassessment year. I also like to touch a little bit and talk a little bit about our multi-year budget. So last year was the first year that we actually presented our multi-year budget, and it's a 25, 26, and 27 budget. And last year, if you remember correctly, if you have been here, our tax increase was 4.2%. So that's what we had last year. This year, we are at 3.9%. So slightly below from what we were last year. So why are we below compared to last year? Or how did we arrive at the 3.9%? And that you can see in the bottom left box when it talks about the consumer price index of 2.1. So first of all, when we look at a tax increase, we take a look and we look at what has CPI been doing over the last year. And the city of Winkler, we use a rolling average starting in October 1st of the previous year, and it ends on September 30th of the following year. And then we look at the rolling average during those months, and that's our consumer price index that we use. And for last year, that was 2.1%. So that's the base that we start with. And we also have a debenture plan here at the city, and this goes a couple years back now. The city used to have debentures of 20 years. So the length of debentures were 20 years, that was common. And when we built the convention center, it was decided from now on we will have no debentures longer than 15 years. So we reduced it by 5 years to save some interest costs. Well, since then we have further actually decided to reduce our debenture length to 10 years. And when you look at the top box, this shows you now our current debentures that we have, and the next debentures that we might have in the next 5 to 10 years. And it shows you how much interest savings we will have by reducing the length of debentures alone. And I'm sure if you have a mortgage at home, you can clearly understand what I'm talking about when you look at the amount that you pay in interest and what amount goes to its principal. The further you reduce it, the more goes towards principal, and that's the same here as well. And we would have a total savings of over $7.8 million. So it obviously pays off, but as you increase your payments or shorten the length of your debentures, so that means your payments increase annually as well. And that's what the 1% represents. So the 3.9 tax increase that we are presenting today, 1% of that 3.9 goes towards the debenture plan, saying that we want to fund that debenture plan so that we can keep debentures to a max of 10 years and support it further. The second 1% that we have is for the asset management plan, and we will talk about the asset management plan on the next slide. And what you also see a slight adjustment of 0.2, and all of those combined bring you to a total of 3.9% of a tax increase for 2026. So this is the asset management plan that I just mentioned before. Shows you what our total replacement value is. We are sitting just under $400 million. And when we look at the replacement value, this does not mean that if the city would replace all assets with new assets, that this would be the amount. This means, for example, if you look at a road and you renew a road, so the base might still stay, but the surface, if it's asphalt or whatever it might be, you might renew, and that's what is included in the replacement value. So the total cost, if you would renew or bring absolutely everything to a new asset, would be a lot higher. But when we look at the asset management plan, we look at the total replacement value, and that's the amount just sitting under $400 million. Then on the bar chart, you can see how our infrastructure or our assets are being divided up. 29.2% is for the roadway systems, including our streets, sidewalks, path, and so on, at over $114 million. And then below you can see our buildings at 25.4%, just shy of 100 million, followed by the wastewater system and the water system of 17.4 and 16.6%, stormwater system at 4.6, the fleet and equipment, all the vehicles that we have across all departments at 3.9% or just over 15 million. And the last one being parks at 2.9% or just over $11 million for that. So this makes up our asset management plan. And when we say that we are putting 1% of our tax increase towards the asset management plan, that means this is the plan that we are trying to support and fund, because we know these assets, we have them on our book, we know it's in our name, and sooner or later they will have to be replaced. And this 1% that we're putting towards the plan will make us ready, once that asset needs to be replaced, that we have the funds available to actually replace it. So this is a graph where you can see the mill rate now. The mill rate changed, and again, shows you the last 10 years. In 2017, we were at 14.299. Now we're at 13.83. So a slight decrease, but I don't like to focus too much on the mill rate because the mill rate is only showing you a small picture of the actual change because it's also is impacted by your assessment change. As assessment grows, as the markets increase, so usually if that happens on the flip side, usually your mill rate goes down. And those two in combination do tell you what your actual tax percentage increase or decrease would be, which we will talk later on in this presentation as well. So when it comes to our debentures or our debt, so at the beginning of this year, the city had a total debt balance of 24.27 million. And you can see the 3 debentures that we currently have on our books, water treatment plant. Even though it's the newest that we added, that debenture got added only last year. It will be the first one that will pay off because this is the first debenture that we have only at a total length of 5 years. So in 5 years, the water treatment plant that is actually still under construction will be paid off again. We took on a 4 million debenture for that project. Then the wastewater treatment facility, sitting here at 8.44 million. So this debenture came on in 2021. So we have made already a few payments towards that facility. It's still, again, under construction. As you know, probably have seen in the news. It's not done, but we will be able to have the debenture for that facility, the wastewater facility, paid off in 2034. So basically in 8 years, we'll make our final payment on the facility, on the wastewater treatment facility that is still under construction. And then the last one being the exhibition center, sitting at 13.29 million with a final payment year of 2038. So this year, we are putting 2.26 million towards principal, which I would say is a positive amount, and that reduces then the starting balance of 24.27 to just over 22 million at the end of this year. Average interest rate is 3.56 for these 3 debentures combined. This graph shows you now over the last 10 years how our budget has changed, what our reserves have done, as well as our debt. So I'll start with the budget, the blue line. So you can see in 2017, it was just over 15 million. Then it peaked in 2024 and has a slightly decrease in 2025 and 2026. So you might look at this graph and you might wonder how comes that the budget for the city has decreased even though I saw maybe a tax increase in 2025. So the budget was, there's 2 reasons why the budget has decreased in the last 2 years. Reason number 1 is because of land inventory. So the city used to have land inventory and sold land to commercial businesses if there was a need, and that was reflected in our revenue side, which this year we don't have that included in our budget since we're out of land inventory. But also, we talked about the 3 large projects, and we will talk about them again later on in this presentation. We were building up our reserves for these large projects, and we also received provincial funding that we kept in our bank account for the wastewater treatment facility, which increased our interest revenue in our bank account. And since these projects are almost at a completion date, those funds have been spent as well. And that's why you also see a decrease in interest revenue. So that's the explanation why you see a slightly less budget than in 2024. The debt, I mean, you're looking at a large increase in 2019. That's when we added the exhibition center. You see another increase in 2021. That's when we added the wastewater treatment facility, and another little increase now in 2025. That's when we added the water treatment plant. Probably in 2027, it will go up a little further for Centennial Arena, and the plan is to have a debenture for another 7.5 million for Centennial, which will show up in 2027. Under reserves, again, it was going up until we started paying towards these large projects, and has slightly gone down now. So in 2026, we're sitting at about $18 million in our reserve accounts. So this slide now tells you what our total budget is for 2026 at $26.85675 million. And 30% of the total budget that the city has, the city is able to generate through other revenue. Again, we'll talk about the other revenue on the next slide. And only 70% of that total budget is being levied against the taxes. So when you receive your tax bill at home, only 70% of the total expenses that the city has to run the city for a year is being put onto the taxpayer, and 30% is being generated through other revenue. So what is that 8.106 million in total revenue that we call other revenue? How is that, if we break it down, what does that represent? The highest portion, 57.87%, comes in from the provincial and from the federal government as support in basket funding and police funding, as well as the CCBF funding, which it was known as the gas tax funding. And that totals up to just over 4.6 million. Then 12.67% is being generated through recreational user fees, just over $1 million. And then other revenue represents also 12.57%, or just over $1 million. And that includes funding that we receive from MMSM, rowers payments, our rec agreement that we have with the Arm of Stanley, and also some fees that we receive from MSDW. Below that, you see added taxes of 6.17%, or 500,000. So this is the line where we also budget for assessment growth that we see in the city of Winkler. So if we have a construction on residential, or institutional, or commercial, doesn't matter which one. If you build a house in Winkler, since it was not initially added in the tax base, we receive a supplementary tax list from the province, which we then, during the year, create new tax bills that were not initially included in the tax base for the current year. And so that is listed in our budget as an added taxes. Below you see the investments. This is the revenue that we have budgeted for in our savings account. So it's sitting at 475,000. Last year we were over $1 million, so that's why I mentioned that before. This is a line now that has come down, which also impacted our revenue. And then the last one being protective fees and fines at 4.86%, or just under 400,000, and the majority of it is from our agreement that we have with the Arm of Stanley on fire protection. So we looked at the revenue, we looked at the gross revenue, now we look at the gross expenses and how that is being divided up. And one thing I like to mention here, when we look at the gross revenues or expense side, you will notice that later on in the presentation I will also share a slide that talks about what is the impact, or what do I receive back from the city for the tax that I pay. And you will see that that's slightly different than the expenses that you see here. And the main point is now, these are the actual gross expenses. Later on, what I have done is I have netted out the revenue against the expenses. One example, for example, is police right now you see as the highest expense for the city of Winkler at 19.39%, or just over 5 million. Later on, you will see it actually jump down a few spots because of the revenue, or the grant support that we receive from the province of Manitoba for police services. So I talked police already, being the highest expense, highest gross expense, I should say, for the city of Winkler. Second place is community services at 17.86, or 4.75 million. Fiscal services is at 14.03%, or 3.7 million. And fiscal services, what that represents, it's mainly our debenture payment that we have for our debt. So we looked before, a slide before, we looked at what our total debt was, and we said 2.26 goes towards principal. Well, this now, the 3.7, shows you the total payment. Obviously, some interest is included in that as well. That is next to it. That one is transportation at 13.7%, or 3.6 million. Corporate services at 12.43%. So what is all included in corporate services? It includes the admin department, council expenses, bylaw, communications, and HR, as well as IT. So that's all included in corporate services. Then you see transfer to reserves at 8.09%, or just over 2 million. And these are funds that we transfer into our reserve account for capital projects. And it's basically, when we look at the asset management plan, we said we have X amount of replacement value. So this is where we're trying to get ready, because we know at point X, infrastructure X or Y has to be replaced so that we can prepare for that upcoming capital expense. Then it's followed by waste disposal of 4.37%, or just over 1.1 million. So this is the $160. If you look at your tax bill at home, you probably see that line of $160 for waste disposal that you pay. That's what this 1.162 million represents. And the next one below that is fire department at 3.73%, or just under $1 million. And then economic development below that, just over 900,000, and planning engineering sitting at 2.92% of the total expense budget at $776,000. So this gives you a little bit of an illustration of how and in which departments does the city spend their money on. So what does this mean? We talked lots about numbers now. We looked at the assessment, looked at the budget, we looked at mill rates. So what does that mean now for you as a taxpayer here at the city of Winkler? So we said it's not a reassessment year, and that means your assessment value, if you did not have any renovation projects, if you did not have an addition to your house, it should not have changed if you would look at your tax bill from 2025, and if you look at your tax bill that you will receive now in 2026, your assessed value should not have changed. If it has changed, then you need to call us and we'll connect you with the province because something is off. But so 45% on residential side is taxable. So you take your assessed value, divide times that by 45%, gives you a portion to assessment. You will multiply that by a mill rate, divided by 1,000, which gives you your municipal taxes. So in this example of $330,000, let's say if your house has an assessed value of $330,000, the municipal tax would be $2,053.76. Obviously, the waste fee is the same across the board. It's a fee per parcel. It's $160. It's unchanged from last year. And that gives you a total municipal tax of $213.76. So that's an increase of $76.48. So if you, on average, if people ask you, if you are wondering how will my taxes change, or how have they, or will they change this year from last year, on average, it all depends. Your assessed value could be less, it could be a little bit higher, but this could be an average amount of $76.48. If you look at the percentage, that's 3.58% in this example. I know before we said on average we are looking at a 3.9% tax increase. Why is this one lower? It also depends on your assessed value. So obviously, since we have the $160 and that's a flat fee, if you would increase the value now to $1 million, that $160 of waste fee has a lesser impact on the $1 million than what it has now on the 330. So that's why the higher the assessment, the higher, on average, your percentage increase would be. So that's why in this one, it's at 3.58, but across the picture, on average, it would be 3.9%. So we looked at $76 now. So what does that mean? I always try to give a few pictures of what that could represent. It could represent 7 fast food meals, maybe at McDonald's, 4 months of Netflix, or a dinner for 2 at a mid-range restaurant. That's roughly what the $76 represent. I had some fun, and I thought, okay, city's always asking tax ratepayers for a little bit of an increase, but is there something that we as ratepayers can do as well? I consider myself being a ratepayer because I'm paying taxes here as well. And so I went into my Excel and I did some calculation. I said, if you take your total taxes and divide that by 12, and at the beginning of every month, you put 1/12 of your total taxes into a TFSA account. And then the second month, you do the same. Third month, you do the same. You keep on adding that up. And August 31st, once your tax bill becomes due, you should have been able to roughly save just over $40. So your tax increase would not be 3.9%, it would be on average at 1.7%, or only a tax increase of $35.88. So that's my little financial advice today. If you haven't done it, maybe do it. So we talked about the residential side. What does it do on the commercial? Very much the same. The only difference is portion assessment is 65%, not 45. So you take your assessed value, times that by 65% to arrive at the portion assessment, multiply that by the mill rate, divide by 1,000. That brings you to your total municipal taxes. And here now, obviously, you don't see the waste collection fee, because the $160, that is for residential only. Commercial is not included. And so so you only see your total municipal taxes. In this example, that means your bill would go up by $334.75, which represents a 3.87%. Again, on average on the commercial side. Below, you see the healthcare funding of $91, also unchanged from last year. So this is now healthcare funding that council agreed to put on the taxes, but we're not incorporating the tax increase. So that's why we showed on the bottom. And next year will be the last year that this will show up on your tax bill, and then it will be removed. It's a 4-year program of $91, and that's across the board for commercial and residential. It's again a partial amount of $91. Doesn't matter what your assessment is. So this is the slide I referenced before. So what do I purchase with my property taxes? And when we look at the different services now that you as the ratepayer receive back, this is now the net cost. So this is now looking at the gross expenses and putting the revenue against it to see, okay, what is actually the net cost? You could also see it from when we looked at that pie-shaped diagram of 70% is being taxed and 30% is other revenue. So this is now representing the 70%. So the first one being fiscal services. So once we put the revenue against expenses, fiscal services represents 18.1%, and which is just over $400. And this goes again back to that residential example of an average assessment of $330,000 home. So that fiscal service, again, that's mainly our debt repayment that we have. So $400 would go towards debt repayment for the city of Winkler. Second highest being community service at 17.9%, just under $400. Then transportation at 17.3%, or at $380. Police service now, as you remember, before police service was the highest. Now it's in the fourth place at 15.3%, and that's sitting at $339. Followed by, this is the waste disposal service fee that you see on your tax bill of $160, and that's then below that is the general government services of $147. Transfer to reserves being $145. Again, that's the amount that we put to our savings account so that we are prepared when we have to replace an asset on our asset management plan. That's followed by economic services, planning services, fire services at the bottom. Again, you see healthcare funding below at $91, but it has a percentage of 0% because, like I said before, we did not include that in our overall tax increase. It was always excluded. That's why it shows here as a 0% as well. So if you wonder how much do I pay for fire protection on average, it's probably around $66. Again, depending on your assessment, could be a bit higher, could be a bit below.
So can I have a question here? What's general government services?
That's for council pay, that's for HR, for admin,
Okay.
for communications, IT, by law.
It was just called something else before.
It was
That's all.
corporate services. I should have
Okay.
called it corporate services.
Okay.
Good catch. We'll do that for
That's fine.
2027.
I think it's my beat.
You always need to improve it a little bit. So this is now on the tax bill, the bill that you receive once a year, so we talked lots about that one. But obviously you also receive 4 times a year, not 5. 4 times a year you receive a water bill from the city as well. So our utility budget this year is just over $5 million. And some of the capital projects you can see are sewer lining, well replacements, water main loop, George Avenue for a reservoir. We want to do some pipe repairs and a generator replacement, and then a water tank repair at our water treatment plant as well. Total budget for that is $1.8 million. Going back to a general side, so we have, again, these are the 3 large projects. that we all had in the budget last year, but this is now, since they all are rolled over into 2026 as well, so we carried over some of the budget from last year. For the water treatment plant, there's 1 million left in our budget. Wastewater treatment plant, 3 million. And then for the Centennial Arena redevelopment, we have a budget of 6.5 million for this year. Some other projects are for corporate services. We have a budget, and this is capital budget only. We have a budget of 5.29 million. That's mainly for, actually almost all of it, for industrial land that the city did purchase. Then for equipment, we have a total budget of 891,000 or 891,500. And the largest equipment that we have budgeted for is an ARF truck. You see that kind of equipment. It might be different, but it's for the fire department, and you might have seen these kind of fire trucks on airports, but something along those lines. That's what our fire chief is looking for this year. In transportation drainage, we have a total budget of just over 2 million. In community services, our capital project budget is 450,000, and total capital project budget for this year is just over $9 million. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for coming out. I very much appreciate that. And if you have any questions, I'm sure we would be happy to answer them.
Indeed. Council to David before we let him go.
I just wanted to say thank you to you and your team for all the work that you put into putting these presentations together, and having worked in accounting for many years, I understand the amount of work that it takes to bring all the budget, all the numbers together, and to then present it in such a way that people understand it. So appreciate all of that work that you've done.
Thanks, Ryan. Council, further?
I'd like to echo those
I was
comments.
gonna say, he stole your thunder there, Mark.
Yeah, that's right, you did. Yeah. It's obvious that you are very knowledgeable, but more important to me, that you care a lot about our financial situation. You come up with various ideas over the year. You've come up with, or the years you've come up with ideas and plans, proposals that help to make the city more efficient and able to do our job better. So thank you very much.
I'd like to echo that. The long-range plan that allows us to see years into the future, that is really good, and critical to that is the debenture plan.
Yeah.
To being able to shrink those debentures down, and where we're looking today to be able to save $7.8 million in interest by shortening our debentures. Our community will benefit for many years for that. We appreciate the guidance that you're able to explain those concepts to council in a way that we can grasp and follow, and then be able to share that benefit with the community. So thank you, David.
And I'm just so glad he's gonna correct the headings for next year. No, good job, thanks.
Is there anyone else here who has a question with regard to the budget? You did an excellent job answering everything as you went, David. Thank you. Not seeing anything in chambers. Council, final questions? Be it resolved that the public hearing for the 2026 financial plan be closed. Mover.
Peter?
Marvin.
Peter got it, Marvin got the second. Final thoughts? All in favor? Carried. Then we will, be it resolved that the 2026 financial plan be now approved. Mover.
Andrew.
Second.
Ryan?
All in favor? That is carried. That takes us to the next piece of business. Be it resolved that the tax levy bylaw number 2366-26 be read a first time. Mover?
Don?
Seconder?
Peter?
Final thoughts?
I like, again, the detail on this one. It leads to transparency.
Agreed. All in favor? That is carried. Be it resolved that public hearings be adjourned and regular council reconvene. Mover.
Michael?
Second.
Ryan?
All in favor? Carried. That takes us to other business, FCM election to the Board of Directors. Councillor Marvin Platt has served us for a number of years in that role. He has agreed to let his name stand for re-election again. So on that note, be it resolved that Council of the City of Winkler endorse Councillor Marvin Platt to stand for election on FCM's Board of Directors for the period starting in June 2026 and ending in June 2028. Be it further resolved that Council assumes all costs associated with Councillor Marvin Platt attending FCM's Board of Director meetings. Mover.
Andrew.
Second.
Ryan?
The all costs piece, the Association of Manitoba Municipalities picks up a good chunk of those. But it is something that we're required to put here as well, that we assume the responsibility should AMM for whatever reason choose not to
FCM.
continue to participate. Any additional thoughts or comments?
No, I just want to thank you, Marv, for your many years serving on that board. You are very well connected in that world. Everyone seems to know you at every conference. And you've done a lot of good work there, not only just for Winkler, but for the rest of the country. So appreciate it. But like, I will highlight though that you've done a lot of good things for Winkler through this as well. So thank you very much, Marvin.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an excellent point, Andrew. We have certainly punched above our weight at FCM level in terms of grants and support for our community. I wonder if stating that this term will only end in June 2028, assuming that you're successful, I would anticipate that you will be letting your name stand for re-election in Winkler in October.
So this is probably the time to announce that then. Yeah, there's a number of things that I've been involved in. I want to thank council for some opportunities and that I've worked with. Healthcare, especially, is a big one. Or water is another big one. It's been good working on that, and so I feel I can still contribute to some further growth and improvement for us.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Marvin, and I appreciate you agreeing to step forward again to serve in an area where there is a lot of effort needed, and that you're prepared to serve your community in that way. All those in favor? And that is unanimously carried. Jody?
Thank you. If I could just say a few things. I want to really
Absolutely.
thank you for that confidence as well. FCM's board work is very important for the benefit of municipalities, including ours, as you were already saying, Andrew. One of the things that has changed in the last few years is we work much more closely, the elected board members, with AMM to bring forward concerns that are important to Manitoba. I think the fact that I've been on the board for a number of years has given me an opportunity to build relationships with members of parliament from all parties, and that helps us in educating and lobbying MPs because we need to work together for grants and infrastructure, and we need to align with the federal goals. Right now, the federal goals is housing, and it's a very good way for us to segue into working on infrastructure, water, wastewater, and so on. We need that to build houses. We can't just get money for houses, as our neighboring community knows all too well. Usually it feels like it's slow working with members of government. Some people here probably think that working with Winkler, it takes a long time. If you want to go for a variation or something like that, it gets longer. One thing that has that it's I feel is a real success. We've all of our Manitoba across Canada actually has had a lot of challenge with safety, feeling safe, and so on. And sometimes things move faster. In this case, due to a very, very unfortunate incident where a young woman from Portage La Prairie a few years ago was killed due to a repeat offender with an arrest warrant being out and so on. And this sort of put a lot of impetus, started with the municipality of Portage La Prairie, and then AMM and Manitoba Justice and so on. We worked hard as board members from Manitoba at FCM board meetings, and we represented that to the federation, or to the federal government, and they brought forward a bill which is in its final stages. So that has moved just tremendously fast. So that's an example where a tragic event led to very positive, urgent long-term, solving of long-term problems. And so I look forward to, that one especially isn't the end-all and be-all, but it's a step in the right direction. So I look forward to using my experience to continue to make a difference, positive for Manitoba municipalities, which always include Winkler.
Excellent, thank you, Mark. That takes us to questions from media or public relevant to this meeting of council. Not seeing anything there.
I have no question.
I'll ask you to come to the microphone, Martin.
Speak my name.
Please.
I'm Martin Harder, in case any of you forgot who I was. On behalf of the citizens of Winkler, which I am one, I want to commend you for the planning and for the diligence that you've practiced to manage our finances well and to present us in a position that is enviable to most municipalities in Manitoba. So thank you for your continued leadership. Jody and your staff, thank you for your diligence to ensuring that the plans that are presented here are rolled out in the city. And just for the staff, congratulations as well. And for you as council, thank you for carrying the torch, and I'm proud of you.
And Martin, I would like to mention, I'm glad you took a moment to come up here. Some of the work that we're doing today, a good portion of it, is based on the asset management programs that you invested in while you were mayor that allowed us to see what is going to be needed. Without that, we wouldn't know where we needed to be. We wouldn't have the benefit of understanding that we need to invest into all of our infrastructure so we can repair, replace, and renew when we needed it. So thank you for your 16 years of leadership that put us into the place that we're in today. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Not seeing anyone else, be it resolved that this regular meeting of council be adjourned. Mover.
Andrew.
Second.
Peter.
All in favor? That is carried.